Okay, Shane, tell me, who are you?
I am Shane German, and I am the manager of artist and label relations from Sound Exchange in Washington, D.C.
Can you tell me a little bit about your background?
I started off as a musician in my 20s and worked at record stores and played the whole rock and roll game, and realized that I needed to get a 401k and some health insurance and start thinking about a career outside of trying to be a rock star, and came to Sound Exchange in 2004. I started off entry level, checking mail and doing some data analysis and data research, and worked my way up to a more of an artist and label relations position.
And what's your role today at Sound Exchange?
I'm still actively pursuing artist and label relations. I'm the director of outreach and do also some part-time consulting work for the Music First Coalition. I gotta redo
That's
that.
okay. I'll say, what's your role today at Sound Exchange? And you can talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of what you do, too. You can say, I am the manager of artist and label relations, and in that capacity, I blankety blank blank.
Okay.
Don't race and don't be too soft-spoken.
Okay.
All right? What's your role at Sound Exchange?
I'm currently the manager of artist and label relations and handle director of outreach. I'm sorry, I have to do this again. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's fine.
You're like,
No, just slow down, take a deep breath. You're okay.
I'm not used to this.
It's fine. Of course you're not. So relax. I don't expect you to be used to it. He doesn't know you from Adam. Relax. What's your role at Sound Exchange?
I currently am the manager of artist and label relations, and I handle a lot of things under that umbrella, between finding unsigned, unregistered recording artists, unregistered record labels that are owed royalties. I also work very hard to work at different festivals and conferences and South by Southwest and different music industry events to get the word out and to get our branding on the next level. Most people are aware of Sound Exchange in a brief capacity or not at all. More people know about ASCAP and BMI, so we're trying really hard to get the name recognition on a much higher level than it is currently.
And what is it that Sound Exchange does exactly?
Sound Exchange collects performance royalties for sound recording copyright owners and featured artists when their music is played on satellite radio, cable radio, and internet webcasting services such as Pandora, Live 365, XM Sirius, Music Choice Cable Radio, etc.
How is that different from ASCAP or BMI?
ASCAP or BMI are paying songwriters and publishers, and they're not paying the featured artist. On non-interactive streaming services like XM Sirius, the performer is entitled to a performance royalty as well as the sound recording copyright owner. Typically, when music is played on regular terrestrial radio, only the songwriter or the publisher gets paid. Those rules are different in a digital medium.
So why was Sound Exchange created? This leads us, the digital medium, the advent of the digital medium leads us to why and when Sound Exchange was created.
Well, in 1998, the Copyright Royalty Board designated Sound Exchange to be the sole entity to collect performance royalties on behalf of recording artists and record labels when their music was played on satellite and digital cable radio services. Previous to that, they figured the rules needed to change when music started going to a digital age, when music started going satellite. They determined at that time that this was the time to get in and make those new rules available to recording artists.
So who does Sound Exchange collect for?
Well, we currently are, Sound Exchange currently pays over 5,000 record labels and over 41,000 recording artists. A royalty stream is set up at 100%, so 50% of the royalty goes to the sound recording copyright owner, whoever owns the master. 45% of the royalty goes to the featured artist, and then 5% is given to non-featured artists, session players, background singers, and that fund is administered by the AFM After Musicians Fund, whose website is raroyalties.org. So if you are both the sound recording copyright owner and the performer, you're entitled to a 95% royalty share.
Wow. You want to talk a little bit about what it means for a featured artist to be paid? You were using that example of Billy Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what it means to be a featured performer.
To be a featured artist, your name has to be predominantly featured in the liner notes or the radio log as the featured artist. Billy Joel would be covered as a featured artist by Sound Exchange. However, Billy Joel's drummer would not. Billy Joel's drummer would go to raroyalties.org or the AFM After Fund to collect that 5% that we administer. Then 50% again going to the sound recording copyright owner, which is typically a record label.
Let's find a way to talk a little bit about, and this may be better earlier in the interview, but let's figure out a way to talk about respect, for instance. When we hear Aretha Franklin performing Respect on the radio, today, who's being paid, and under what conditions can Aretha be paid? So let's see if we can work that in.
Okay. Typically, when you are driving in your car and you're listening to FM radio and you hear Aretha Franklin singing Respect, Aretha Franklin does not receive a royalty for performing that song. Otis Redding gets paid a royalty because he wrote the song. There's currently legislation in the House right now, it's the HR 848, that would entitle anytime a performer is played on terrestrial radio, they would get a royalty even if they didn't compose or write the song.
It's okay. Let's maybe include when Aretha does get paid for Respect. Right now, you could say, you could talk a little bit about the fact that, in non-interactive digital media, as, if you hear Aretha Franklin performing Respect on Sirius XM.
Okay. Currently, if you hear Aretha Franklin performing Respect on regular terrestrial FM radio, she wouldn't get a royalty because she didn't write the song. Otis Redding would get the royalty. However, when Respect is played on satellite radio, cable radio, or internet webcasting, she would be entitled to a performance royalty, which is the royalty that Sound Exchange administers.
What is Sound Exchanging doing, if anything, to change the world for artists?
We're doing a lot to advocate on the behalf of recording artists. We are currently partnered with a lot of other organizations in the music industry and have formed the Music First Coalition. Fairness in Radio starting today. This legislation, the HR 848, would entitle recording artists to get paid a performance royalty anytime their music is played on terrestrial radio, FM radio stations. We have been working for several years now to get this legislation passed. There are reciprocal issues. There are money overseas that won't be released to U.S. artists because we don't release that money to foreign artists. And we feel that this is a fundamental issue of fairness, and it's an issue of labor. If someone's working and creating art, and corporate radio is making millions in advertising, then they should compensate the people who are keeping their business running.
Is the United States alone in being a country that doesn't offer a performance royalty on broadcast?
The United States has the distinct displeasure of joining Iraq, Iran, North Korea, and Rwanda as the only countries that don't pay a performance royalty when their performers are played on regular radio.
Are there many artists who don't know there are funds at Sound Exchange waiting for them?
Yes, because Sound Exchange is a relatively new organization, a lot of artists are not aware that they have these royalties available to them. We currently pay 40,000 artists, but there are still many, many more that don't even know that they have these royalties waiting for them in their names. We do have a list of royalty recipients on our website, www.soundexchange.com, which lists all of the artists that we're looking for. We try different avenues, working with other unions, working with other organizations to try to get the word out, create partnerships with organizations so that their constituencies are aware of what we're doing and that there is money available for them.
Are you, let's see, how can I phrase this? Are you actively engaged in finding people, and what happens if you don't find them?
Well, technically, by law, we can hold on to the money we can release the money after 3 years that's redistributed into our pool of existing membership. We have opted not to release that money at this time so that we can get the word out a little bit more and people can become aware of our organization. We have a team of consultants that work in genre-specific fields. We have a Latin consultant who speaks Spanish and can work with the Latin music community and get the word out in that community. We have legacy artists, consultants who work with old jazz and blues musicians. So we do have people that are specialized in a particular genre that help us find people who are not registered. But because XM and satellite radio have 100 different channels that play a wide range of genres, and they play music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's a lot of music that's being played out there. So the challenge is finding people who are being played. And if they don't have a business manager, or if they're not in the business anymore, or they retired, or they're deceased, if they died in 1939 and they never married and had children, how do you find that person? So that's why we rely on other unions and other organizations to help us locate a lot of these artists that are not easily findable within the industry.
You want to tell me a favorite story about finding an artist?
Yeah, I had to find Howlin' Wolf. I didn't know exactly where to go about finding his heirs or the estate of Howlin' Wolf. And I just Googled the most recent book, a biography that was written, went to that author's website, and emailed the author and asked in his research on the biography of Howlin' Wolf if he came across the heirs or an estate executor. And he gave me the phone number and email addresses of Howlin' Wolf's 2 daughters. And I contacted them, and they were more than happy to receive the money that we had available to Howlin' Wolf.
There's a lot of money, I guess.
There was a lot of money for Howlin' Wolf. There's a lot of money for all types of artists out there that you'd be surprised, you know, that they don't know about Sound Exchange. But if they're not living and their children or their widow are not in the industry, you know, the challenge is finding those people, not necessarily the artists themselves.
Because they're going to be less likely to find you, I suppose.
Correct.
Because they're not in the business.
Right.
Lastly, I guess I'd like to ask you if you find the work gratifying, and if so, why?
I love my job at Sound Exchange. It's one of the few times I've had a job where I look forward to going to work every day. I look forward to contacting an artist and you know, letting them know that they have money available. I get Christmas cards and thank you cards from people who are so touched by the work that we're doing and the campaign that we have going on to keep protecting their rights and to ensure that they keep getting royalties for when their music is played.
Great. I think we're good.